Hello and welcome. Thank you for joining. My name is Dr. Shannon Miller-Mace, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the humanistic online model for engagement through the Design Center for Course Development. In particular, I'd like to talk about the outcomes and assessments standards for clarifying alignment and relevance. So to start, I'd like to address a problem. In my department, we teach a college algebra class. And what we find in this class is that a lot of students enter this class and leave this class without the technical mathematics writing skills that they need to really be successful. So you'll notice that one of our learner outcomes here is to communicate written mathematics using appropriate notation and explanation in English. So I want to talk to you about many different ways that I sort of try to address this in my class from various perspectives. So one is throughout the semester, I encourage my students to submit notes. This is optional right now. My goal ultimately is to scaffold this quite a bit and make it a bit more rigorous and a bit more technical as the weeks go along. So I'm doing some research on that right now. For now, this is the assignment that students see each week, and it's very open and free form. So students are submitting whatever they end up writing down from their own learning. But you'll notice that I have reiterated here the goal, like the course outcome, right? To better communicate the written mathematics. So this is sort of in the learning aspect, week to week of the class. So that's number one. Number two, after we go through a module, we get through some content. What I end up doing is either providing in a discussion forum or sort of a gamified OneNote. Speaking of discussion forums and gamification, don't forget to go back to the Design Center page. There's some really good videos there on gamification and revitalizing your discussion boards. So go check those out. But I have a gamified OneNote. Let me see if I can click here. You'll notice here. So what I end up doing, this is a teach to learn activity, and I basically try to find problems and questions that cover all of my learning objectives for the module, and I post them in either a discussion forum board on Blackboard, or I create this OneNote. And you can see here that I've started this. Got a OneNote here with some questions, and the students are starting to answer those, and I'll moderate that. And ideally, students are posting their best, most perfect, correct solution. So the idea here is to make the students the expert. They're going through this list and they're figuring out what they feel the most comfortable with, and that's what they're presenting to the class. And again, I'll moderate that. And ideally, what we end up with in the end is a solution set, right, for all of these questions within the OneNote or the discussion board forum. So that sort of element has students reading and writing and seeing what other students are reading and writing, and I'm making comments on that as we go along. So that's number two, the sort of teach to learn practice. Ultimately, what happens after that is I actually have students report on that. So in addition to actually creating the solutions, so we PDF that, right? We make a one document with all of the solutions, and everybody can see that. But then students evaluate themselves on their perceived ability. Do you need to work on things, or have you definitely mastered it? So I get a lot of really good responses in here on the Teach to Learn report. So then what happens is before they take an assessment, the last thing that I like to do is actually to give them very specific examples of what I expect on the exam, and actually go through the details of a general sort of rubric for what I'm expecting in their writing. So you'll see an example here of a question on a Module 1 college algebra exam. And I've gone through and redacted and pulled some student solutions, some sample student solutions. And this is a document that I provide my class. So they can read this, and you'll notice I'm providing these solutions, and I have a couple more here. And then I start going through the rationales. Okay, well, how are we going to score these? What does this actually look like? So I pick each one of these, and in the boxes, you can see I've gone through my rationale for my thinking on how I would score each of these and why I would score each of those the way that I did. And then in the end here, you'll see my summary where I've gone through and I've summarized those and then letting the students know that this is the kind of thing I do for each one of their problems. So I think this makes it really clear to my students exactly the sorts of things that I'm asking for and gives them some really concrete examples to base their solutions off of. But before I move away from this document, the other thing that happens is that students do ask a lot of questions. How do I write something when it's a graph? Or what if I type something into the online platform and it tells me that I'm wrong, but I've written it correctly? So I do address some common entry errors and FAQs here in the end. And again, this is just based on what students have asked me. And so I talk about plagiarism as well. How can you actually try to make what you're submitting your own, make it uniquely yours, right? So it's very clear that this is your work and it's not coming from some sulfur. So I hope that that was helpful. And I know that my students really do appreciate this. I've gotten a lot of good feedback about this kind of document. So that's sort of part 4. Of the things that they get before the exam. And then finally, when they're on the exam, you'll see here that the way my exams are structured, there's an off or a third party entity that I'm using. So they get some digital type of questions. These can be Blackboard questions, but they do have to submit a written document to me. And so what I do in the beginning, depending on the level of the student and depending on how far along in the course we are, sometimes I'll even give them a test taking template. Pardon me, I'll show them exactly what it looks like. How much space are you supposed to take up when you're writing solutions on this particular exam? So thinking about giving students a very clear indication of what is expected on their assignments when they're writing and encouraging them to write more and get more technical with their mathematics writing. But not only does this particular document make it clear to the students what's expected of them, but it also makes it really easy for me as the assessor, the instructor, to grade what students are submitting to me. So I think this has been really helpful for me, and I hope that it's helpful for you too when we're thinking about trying to make really good decisions about aligning our courses to our outcomes and making them sort of relevant to students. Why are we doing this kind of thing? And why are these things being expected of us? So thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. Please reach out to the Design Center if you want a copy of any of these assignments or any of these modules. They'd be happy to copy those over for you. And contact me and let me know if you have any questions or thoughts or ideas about what I'm doing. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, and I hope you have a great day.